Hi, I here. This is a reading for the sign of Pisces. We're going to do a Celtic cross spread with a Thoth deck, and what we see on the bottom of the deck is going to represent what you don't see coming. And after we get an idea of what the general message of this reading is going to be, we're going to pull 3 cards from the shadow deck to see what's going on in your subconscious, and to see if there are any further clarifications we might need. So let's just see what happens. Okay, so today we are tuning in to the sign of Pisces. So if that is your sun, your moon, or your rising sign, or however else you choose to identify today with the sign of Pisces, you can use that as a way to interpret the messages that are coming through. And as always, if the details of these messages don't fit, that's okay. Do not try to force them. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And if none of the details are really seeming to fit your life or your situation, you can always check your other placements, or you can just stick around and see what's going on in the world of other Pisceans. So let us see what we get today. What things should we think about? Are there things that we should meditate on? Things we should reflect upon? Are there things that we should look out for? Are there any warnings that we need to be shown? Are there perhaps positive things that we should look forward to? Things that we can perhaps put our energy into or move towards to make our lives a little happier or nicer or pleasant or whatever it is we're trying to achieve? What messages do we need to receive today for those who are trying to tap in to the energy of the sign of Pisces? So let us see what our Celtic cross has to share with us today. Do one more good shuffle. There we go. All right, let's see what we get. All right, that feels good. All right, so we will start in the present moment with the Hanged Man. It's time to look at things from a different perspective. We need to, in some sense, flip our world upside down, maybe not literally, but mentally, to see what things really look like from a different perspective. You know, perhaps if we're living too much of a grounded life, we should look at things from a more spiritual or higher purpose sort of framework, or if perhaps we're looking at things from too high of a spiritual side, perhaps we need to look more at the practicalities of our lives. Whatever your situation is, try thinking about things in the reverse of where they are now and see if that gives you some insights on what might be blocking whatever your progress is towards, or anything that may be creating struggle or difficulty in your life. Just flip it around, look at it in a mirror, turn things upside down, and just see what things are presented to you when you look at them from this different perspective. There's also a little bit of a sense of sacrifice in this card. Perhaps you have to give a little bit of yourself up in order to put yourself in a suspended state to wait for something to occur. But it's really about sitting in a in-between state and looking at both sides of something simultaneously so that we can gain a deeper and wider perspective of what's coming to us. Okay? So now, what is crossing us is the Prince of Wands. Interesting. So perhaps the energy of the Prince of Wands is what we should be reflecting upon. Perhaps you're in a place where you are, taking your confident power, your energy that really inspires you, that other people like about you. Perhaps that needs to be realigned in some way. Perhaps that needs to be sort of reeled in and maybe cleaned up and used in a more constructive fashion. Or maybe it's just a statement of needing a little bit more groundedness. Right? The Prince of Wands can sometimes get away from himself with the amount of fire that he's channeling. Okay, so let's see what's going on around this. Okay, Temperance or Art, the Ten of Wands, the Seven of Discs, the Fool, the Ten of Discs, the Queen of Swords, the Ace of Wands, and there's the Three of Wands. Okay. Interesting. Let's see what's going on here. So, in terms of our major arcana, we have the Art card, we have the Hanged Man, and the Fool. Which are all pretty powerful cards. In some sense, the Hanged Man and the Fool are like complementary but like opposite energies at the same time. The Fool is not really looking at things from any perspective. He's just, barreling forward and doing whatever feels right and, going towards what he feels like he needs to go towards. Where the Hanged Man is a very, disciplined, quiet, reflective, meditative state of getting very precise concentration and thinking very clearly and really analyzing things very heavily, the opposite of the Fool. But in some sense, they're also both free, but in different extremes. Like one is free by doing nothing, and one is free by trying to assert like intense control over the situation to get some perspective. So that's interesting. And then our other major arcana, the Art card, is a card about balancing extremes and performing some sort of like alchemy. Maybe this is some sort of balance between those two spirits of yourself need to come into better alignment. And again, maybe that comes back to the Prince of Wands and that sort of fiery passion that he brings to the table that everyone loves and gets excited to be around, but can sometimes come off as arrogant and even a little bit like destructive at times. If he gets a little bit too into his petty side, he can sometimes be a little bit of a burning force rather than a source of warmth. So perhaps that's a sort of represented here at the duality between the Hanged Man and the Fool. Perhaps we want to have that fiery, free-flowing air kind of quality to our we want to have that free-flowing sort of chaotic, creative fun with our fire energy, but we also need to make sure that it stays disciplined and orderly and in alignment with something that's going to help us be constructive moving forward. But all right, I'm kind of rambling here about our major arcana. There's more going on than just the major arcana. So what else we have here in terms of our court cards? We have the Prince of Wands. We have the Queen of Swords, which are three different kinds of energies. Right, the Queen of Swords is a more she's a little bit more heavy on the rational side of things than the Prince of Wands. She's a little bit more of a cold sort of demeanor. They're both thinkers, right? They're both people who have what's the word I'm looking for? They're both got that airy quality to them, but in different ways. The Queen of Swords is more of the logical, rigid thinking that is going to sort of cut through the truth right there in front of you and kind of tell it like it is, show you things as you need to see them, and that may not feel like a nurturing energy, but it is, because what the Queen is trying to present to us is things that we need to see that we might not see if we don't get a little bit of tough love. And the Prince of Wands has a similar kind of sort of cutting energy, but it's not as much on the cold rational side so much as the that fiery. We're gonna tell it like it is, but it's gonna be a big sort of colorful, sort of playful experience as you get this information that comes forward through to you. But anyway, so that's our court cards. In terms of our minor arcana, we have the Seven of Discs and the Ten of Discs for our earth energy. In terms of our air energy, we just have the Queen that's there. In terms of the water energy, we have no cups here that I'm seeing. So yeah, no water energy. So that also seems to be a theme that I've been seeing in some readings lately. There's been a lot of weight tending to have a lot of weight towards one element over another. In particular, water has not been showing up a lot lately. So it's kind of just an observation to make. But we have lots of fire, right? We got the Prince, we got the 10, we got the 1, we got the 3. Lots of fire. And I mean, look at all that fire on the Art card as well. So there's some passion here. But yeah, not a lot of emotional energy. So that's interesting. So especially for Pisces, right? It's very, very kind of un-Piscean to not have a lot of water energy floating around here. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. So as I said, with the Hanged Man, that is a card of sort of looking at things from a different perspective. And I think that perhaps with the Prince of Wands being the card that is crossing it, I think those qualities of the Prince of Wands are what you maybe need to be considering sort of reevaluating and perhaps even getting into better alignment. As I said, we have the Fool above everything, which is that spirit of just like playful, wow, let's do this. And there's a side of the Prince of Wands that has that, but there's also a sort of more rigid and calculating side to him as well, where he is going to lay down a plan and he's going to work through it. And that side is not coming through as intensely if we're giving into that Fool energy. So underneath it, we see a very different sort of like color palette here with the Seven of Discs. It's like it's really dark, you know. And I think that's the practical side that's sort of inside of that Prince of Wands that you can be channeling, though it's not really part of his sort of demeanor to show off that sort of slow practical worker. Right, he wants to be seen as fun and exciting and that passionate side, but he has that in him as well. And so again, with the art card here, I feel like this is sort of like there's like a balancing that needs to be happening in this extreme here. And the art card is sort of fusing those extremes together, taking the free, caring, flowing, I don't give a energy of the Fool, with this Seven of Wands, actually not wands, discs, practicality of sticking to a plan, even though it may not seem fruitful at first, really looking at the long haul of the situation, like what is going to happen if I keep at this, even though it may not get me where I want to get now. Eventually, if I put in that time and work, it will eventually pay off, fingers crossed, hopefully. And so we want to have that freedom of the Fool to just go with the flow, but we need to also have that discipline of the Seven of Discs. And I think if we can balance those two together and contain that with some nice, fiery, passionate Prince of Wands energy, we can get all that sort of balance together. And that's the art that we can create moving forward through this timeline. But we're not done yet. That's why I think the Hanged Man is in the center. That is the card that's telling us that we are in transition. We are in between. We are suspended in this state of trying to figure out how to balance those two sides. And with the 10 in the future, that's a card that is representative of burden, having to carry a heavy weight. So perhaps that is the difficulty here, is trying to balance. I mean, this is a reading for Pisces, so you're very dreamy, you're very creative, lost in your thoughts kind of energy, and so the Fool sort of spirit is a great sort of energy to tap into to have that creative flow, but we need that discipline, and I think that's perhaps the burden, the oppression that we feel in the future timeline, is that as we try to balance those two weights, that becomes a difficult thing to have to juggle. Okay, but it's inspired. This is how we're creating. There's art to be produced here, but it takes a lot of good quality art. It's a mix of just random chaos with really focused control, and I think that's what's happening here, is trying to tell us that if we really want to create really powerful, inspiring art that people are going to want to look at and have the same kind of awe that they have when they're in the presence of the Prince of Wands, we have to put in some heavy work to make sure that chaos is free-flowing but controlled. And that's difficult. That's the oppression that we feel, and it almost feels like we're trying to clamp down on our creativity. We don't want to do that. We don't want to encage the Fool, because then our work becomes formulaic. But we do still need that spirit, that playfulness of the Fool, or all of this darkness that we have with the Seven of Discs is going to make us feel very closed off. And so it's the alchemy that is occurring here, is all of that energy balancing together, and it's not easy. But, if you keep your eye on the prize, perhaps, of what you're trying to create, that's what can help motivate you. And so that's what I think this Ten of Discs here is representative of, is not necessarily the creation of your goal, but this is the sort of carrot that is moving you towards your goal. This is your present energy, and I think that's how you get through these difficult oppressions that you see in front of you, the difficult hurdles that you're going to have to overcome. You're able to handle that weight by looking at the ideal version of what you're trying to move towards. And so you may, in your immediate future, see all of these burdens that you have to carry, but you know that beyond those burdens is this really beautiful, abundant um, uh, outcome that you can get if you really put in that time and work to create this thing. Okay, so and then in our environment we have the Queen of Swords. That's that harsh reality of realizing that it's not easy doing the things you want to do, creating the things you want to create. It takes a lot of difficult time and work, and it's stressful, and it can really burn us out. But we need to see those difficulties so that we can learn to work towards overcoming them and be constructive as we handle whatever life throws at us. And so the Queen of Swords in our environment is it's like your support group. It's the people that are going to tell you the hard truths that you need to hear so you know what you need to work on. Maybe you have some amazing idea and you think it's going to be fantastic and you have all this like excited, full energy to just make it, but you realize it needs to be refined if it's going to be a successful idea. So you need people around you that care about you, are supportive of you, but are not going to let you fall into sort of delusional fantasies of, oh, this is so awesome, this is great, I'm going to make this and it's going to be the best. You need some grounding, and the Queen of Swords can help you with that grounding. So keep your eye on what you want to create, but let the people around you remind you of how to stay grounded, and that'll help you make a plan that'll allow you to overcome whatever these difficulties are that you have to carry with the Ten of Wands in this creative process. And then the challenge is the Ace of Wands, which is interesting. I think what that's trying to say is that the challenge is that when you're trying to overcome these difficult hurdles, it's hard to be able to tap into the sort of creative spirit that inspires you to make art in the first place. And we really need to make sure that, as we get wrapped up in the work and the difficulty required to produce our ideas, that we don't lose sight of that full, fiery, excited energy. I think that the Ace of Wands and the Fool, for me here, are really saying the same kind of thing. We need to have that spirit of charging forward and wanting to create. But unlike the Fool, who's just bumbling around, bumping into things, there's a little bit more focus with that wand, right? It's a source of creative magic that you can just, put the ideas in your mind into the world by, pulling forth all of the cool things that are in your head, and you want to make them real. But it's more focused than just like sitting down and just like writing whatever comes out. Now that's a great way to start. You want to just have that spirit of the Fool when you create a new idea, but the wand takes all of that chaotic energy and sort of helps you to confine it in a way that is more palatable, intelligible, refined. And that's work. I mean, it's a little bit of it dims the brightness of that chaotic energy, but that's the balancing act that has to occur here. Okay, and maybe that's also part of the message here with why there's no water, is that there's a little bit of a balancing on that fire. The challenge is tapping into that creative source, but you need to temper it with a little bit of water energy. You can see in the art card there, right? There's fire and water being poured together, and they both neutralize each other, but at the right balance to create something perfect. Okay. And I think if you're able to accomplish this balance, that's where the Three of Wands, the Virtue card, comes from. This is how we take our creation and we make it into something even more beautiful, and we find the path that we need to help this thing really come into reality. Where the two of those wands are these extremes of the source of how something is made, the as I said, this sort of excited, chaotic passion, and the overly logical, refinement that keeps it in a more palatable state. If those two things can cross each other just right, and then you can put forth like the energy to actually like create that balanced view of your idea, then you can actually construct it to something in your world that you can actually share with other people. And then not only do you have that beautiful idea, but other people can enjoy that idea with you, right? That's kind of what the Prince of Wands is all about doing, is taking that fiery, passionate energy, trying to control it and refine it so that it can then be used as a light for other people to rally around and shine for other people. So yeah, that's what I'm getting from that. I hope that made some sense. But okay, let's see what you don't see coming. The Sun. Okay. Well, that's just awesome. That's just like, hey, things are gonna go well. I mean, if the whole part of this reading, the whole message of this reading was about the creative process and learning to temper chaos and order together to create something that is refined and beautiful, that perfect balance, um, right? I mean, that's the sun energy, right? That's that perfect balance between those two extremes. They come in together, and that perfect alignment it's the sun. I don't know what more to say about it, but it's that perfect joyful bliss of the center of the most powerful version that something can be, that can then be used to shine light on everything else that's around it. Maybe that's a more poetic way to say it, but again, I really feel like there's a chaos and there is an order. And the sun kind of represents both of those things, right? It's a giant ball of fire floating through space, like it's literally a giant ball of fire, like it's just chaotic power. But it plays a very important role as being sort of the center that around which all the different planets in the solar system are revolving. It is also a source of chaos and a source of order, and that those two sides of its nature are what's so important to why it's a beautiful, powerful thing in our world. So what you don't see coming is that you can have the power of the sun if you take your crazy chaotic ideas, refine them, structure them, and then put them in a way that other people can understand them, and then they can use those ideas to help better themselves or just to have a more enjoyable life experiencing whatever you brought into the world. So okay, so that's what I have for you there. Let's see what the shadow deck has to say before I keep rambling too much more about the sun. All right. Interesting reading. I wasn't sure quite where this was going to go until we jumped into it, and I like where it ended up. Some good advice for the artist out there. Which, I mean, this is reading for Pisces. A lot of artists have strong Pisces energies. So. Just remember, it's a mix of chaos and order. That's how you create greatness. Alright, so let's pull 3 cards from here to see what's going on in your subconscious. See what you're thinking about. There we go. Nice and shuffled. So we have the 8 of Cups. There's some water. 5 of Swords and the Knight of Cups. Okay, there's where all that water energy is hiding. It's hiding in your head. You're not feeling it. It's stuck in your head. So with the 8 of Cups, that is the card of walking away from things that do not serve you. The 5 of Swords is a card of defeat. And the Knight of Cups is a card of presenting emotional energy out into the world for other people to receive. So I'm getting the sense that perhaps there is some sort of emotional blockage that's occurring here. Some sort of difficult situation that's the 5 of Swords represents has made you realize that you needed to get away from something, and perhaps that has sort of turned off that emotional water tap inside of you. And so either you feel the need to give love or receive love is what the Knight of Cups is representing. It's not clear whether that's you or whether that's something that you are wanting to come into your life, but very much so the energy I'm getting here is an emotional blockage that's happening in your subconscious, that is coming from something difficult that you're away from it, you're moving away from it, but there's some sort of Knight of Cups connection that is either something that is growing or something that you are moving towards. And again, it could be either you presenting that outwardly or having that being brought into your life. But there's at least a desire in your subconscious for that kind of emotional connection because of whatever this difficulty was over here. And what we have that we don't see coming is the Magician. Interesting. I think that's the source of creation for whoever this is resonating with, is this emotional energy. We don't want to just take the force of fire and try to dim it down by turning the heat down. I think I've even said this in some other readings lately. The alchemy that needs to occur to create art is the balancing of water and fire, passion and emotions, which are not the same thing. So, in order to get this magician energy back, to be able to create and express the cool ideas that you've got in your little Piscean mind over here, uh, you need to get back in touch with this emotional energy. It's inside you. I think it's blocked, but hopefully, once you are able to tap back into that, that's going to allow you to be able to create things again and do your Piscean thing. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. That's all I have for you today. I hope this helped, or was at the very least enjoyable. As always, if there are other messages that come through or different messages that come through to you based on the images in these cards or some of the offhanded things I ramble about, let the message come to you as it needs to. Use your intuition and realize that when we go through these readings, it's not just me telling you what's happening, it's me expressing the ideas that these cards are representing. And as you hear that and experience that, that gives you the ability to sort of see how that reflects on how you see things and what you're going through. And that's how those messages really can come through, is for you to be able to connect with the things I'm sharing with you and the things you're experiencing, so you can figure out how, this is just ideas, energy here, but how that sort of manifests in your world comes down to how these cards are interpreted by you in your experience. So always use your intuition with these readings. And but yeah, I hope this was helpful. If you have any comments that you would like to share, any feedback, any personal experiences that this may be helped with or makes you think of, please share those below. I try to respond as best I can to everyone that comments. And yeah, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video with anyone that you think might enjoy or benefit from it. And that's all I have for you today. I hope you have a great rest of your day.